So it is Sunday, December 1st. I figured it is a good time to start a new reading vlog, and I'm currently in the middle of 3 books. The first one is Deep Work by Newport. I normally don't talk too much about my nonfiction reads, but I thought I'd let you know what I'm currently reading. I'm excited for this because I've read, I think there was another book by Newport that I've read and I really liked. I'm excited to see his thoughts on this. It started off in a really interesting way, talking about Carl Jung, which is a figure that I've been recently more interested in as I've started getting more interested in psychology. So I feel like that kind of hooked me into the book as well. So I'm so far really enjoying this book, but I haven't gotten super far into it yet. The next book that I've started reading is The Spellshop by Beth Durst. So I've tried reading one of her books in the past and it was kind of just okay for me. I've really literally only got to the first chapter. I'm a little bit further into this one though. And for this, it does have kind of cozy fantasy vibes. So our main character is in this attack at the very beginning of the novel. She's a librarian and she takes some of those books with her when she flees, which she's not supposed to do, and she goes back home with some of these books. So she's kind of hiding these illegal books, but at the same time she is in this community which she doesn't really know anyone in, and that's about as far as I've gotten. I will say I'm a little iffy about this book right now. I think this might end up as a DNF. It might not. It might, just because the main character, I don't jive with her that well. She's very anxious around new people is what it seems like, where she's scared to talk to people, which has never been me. Maybe when I was really little. I don't know how I'm gonna like this one, but I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. I did think it was a little bit of a weird vibe because it definitely has a cozy fantasy kind of vibe, but this was more marketed as a romantasy, which I haven't really seen that side of it yet. So we'll see. I could potentially really like it though. And the last book that I've already started is Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This is the sequel to One Dark Window, which I picked up One Dark Window just kind of on a whim. I ended up really liking it. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't a best book of the year for me by any means, but it was better than other romantasy books that I have read in the past. So I did want to read the next book in the series. I got the ebook for this though, not the audiobook, which I read the audiobook for One Dark Window. So I started it, but I don't love it. So I don't I think when it comes to ebooks and physical books, I tend to really only finish the ones that I really love, whereas audiobooks, I could kind of finish pretty much every audiobook that I start. Unless it's a super long book, it's a 40-hour audiobook or something. If I start an audiobook, chances are I'm gonna finish it even if I'm not enjoying the material. So I don't know where I'm going with this one either, but I've literally just read the first page so far. It is my new ebook, so I do think I will get further into this one and I'll have more thoughts then. But I did enjoy the first one, so I'm really excited to see where the second one is going because the first one did leave off on a cliffhanger. So it is Monday, December 2nd. I actually didn't work today because I'm off on Mondays in the month of December because I'm working Saturdays instead. So my weekend is Sunday, Monday. So I spent the entire day errands and different things just to get myself prepped for the week ahead because I know it's gonna be a super busy week. While I was doing all of those errands, I was listening to my audiobook the entire time, which is The Spellshop by Beth Durst, and I actually ended up finishing it. So I actually enjoyed this a lot more than I was expecting to. I know yesterday I was pretty skeptical of it. I think it was just perfect for what I was doing because it didn't take my attention away so much. I wasn't that invested in it that I got distracted from what I had to do, but it calmed me and it was just a feel-good story to listen to while I was just doing things washing the dishes and cleaning the house and just a bunch of other things. Cleaning my car was one of them because I'm gonna be spending the next 5 days out of my car basically. So there were just a lot of things I had to do. It was just a really easy book to read while I was doing all of those things. I will say it's still not one of my favorites, but it was a nice feel-good book and there were a lot more adventures than I was expecting because this was kind of more of a cozy fantasy. It would have been a great autumn read, I feel but I'm kind of more into winter vibes now, and I feel it could potentially be a good transition book over, so I did enjoy that quite a lot. The romance does come in this book, but I wouldn't say this is romantasy. I would put this more on a fantasy kind of spectrum here, not high fantasy. This is more low fantasy. There is magic. It's not super described of what the magic is, but it is in another world. It's not paranormal, if that makes sense. So I enjoyed it. I did not particularly like the main character, but she did grow on me. Even though like does have a little bit of an anxious mindset, which is generally not the type of mindset that I want to be reading from, I still enjoyed the overall just story, partially because it was just so whimsical. There were like some parts of it that I like really loved. Like there is a plant that is sentient. There's a sentient plant, and then there's another sentient plant appears like out of nowhere that they weren't expecting, and those two plants have a relationship, and I love that about it. So there are like little things like that that were just sweet that made this book a really good read. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Not bad book, but not like a new favorite of mine or anything like that. I also did make progress on Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. Now this one, I kind of remember why I liked the book in the first place, because there is an aspect of the writing style that's very lyrical, especially when the nightmare is talking. So the main character's name is Elspeth, but she has a nightmare in her head, which I don't want to give away too much of spoilers from the first book, but when the nightmare talks, it has this like lyrical quality to it that the audiobook was just so good to listen to. I feel like I'm not getting as much from that perspective, but I'm still enjoying it. I think I will continue on with it just because if I do wait for the audiobook, it'll be like another 6 weeks. I'm actually like remembering like the cliffhanger from the previous book, and that's making me want to continue reading this series. I will say I do like that the magic system is very original, but I don't like the magic system in general because it has to do with like cards, and like if you have a card, then you could do a particular type of magic, and I don't know, I just don't like that whole card system. I feel like there are more interesting ways of doing magic systems, but at the same time, I like that it's original. So I'm enjoying it so far. I haven't gotten super far into it. I'm like chapter 3 or something like that. And then to replace the Spellshop for my audiobook, I decided to pick up A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. I've heard lots of good things about this book, but I don't know anything about it. All I've gotten so far is the very like beginning of this book, where the main character is basically like being controlled by her mom, like physical body is being controlled by her mom, which I don't know if I read this book and Two Twisted Crowns at the same time, because they're both kind of like books where like the main character is a young woman who is kind of being controlled by someone else. I don't like that, but at the same time, it's intriguing me. So I think for now, I'm gonna stick with it, but if it starts to annoy me, I might switch to another audiobook just for a short period of time until I finish Twisted Crowns, or I might stop that one for a short time until I finish this one or the other. Alrighty, so it is Wednesday, December 4th, and I just finished A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. This is the first book that I've read by this author, and I enjoyed it so much. I'm actually really glad that I didn't realize that this is a retelling, because it's a retelling of The Goose Girl, which is a book that I've read previously, or I've read retellings of this story previously, and I generally don't like them, but I liked this one a lot. I think part of it is just there were pretty high stakes, because we have Cordelia, who's basically being controlled by her mother. Like, her mother makes her obedient because her mother is a sorceress, but no one knows that her mother is a sorceress other than Cordelia. And then it's also following a character named Hester, and they both kind of have pretty high stakes in this game, because Hester basically, like, if the sorceress actually manages to marry her brother, Hester's basically gonna lose everything, because right now Hester's running that household. And then of course Cordelia, her entire body is being controlled by her mother, and it's in a way that I wasn't expecting to love it that much. Like, I expected dark, and it definitely was dark, but like there was this like lyrical atmospheric quality to it that made it just fun to read. So I enjoyed this a lot. It is definitely a dark like fantasy, but it also has like a different atmosphere than the typical dark fantasy that I read, and I liked it a lot. So I definitely think I want to read more by this author. This is the first book I've read by her, and it was really, really good. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. I don't think it's going to be a new favorite, but it's definitely a book that I would read again. Or if it had a sequel, I would read the sequel. I don't think it's meant to have a sequel, but I'm definitely going to be reading more by this author. So it's Thursday, December 5th, and yesterday, to replace my audiobook, since I finished it yesterday, I decided to pick up The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. I am so happy that I did. I'm enjoying this so much. It's giving me similar vibes to like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I wasn't really expecting. I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I knew it was going to be some sort of portal fantasy, and basically what it is is our main character, Cassie, has this old man who's a friend who dies, and he leaves her this book. And basically, the book can open a door to any place. Like, the first time she uses it, she opens her apartment door and she sees, like, a street in, I believe it's Venice. So, like, it's not like the apartment hallway. Like, the door to her apartment just goes to Venice instead, and then she closes it, and then it's her regular building again. Like, it turns back to normal. So, I find this incredibly fascinating, and I like how it's skipping through different, like, characters' heads as well. I don't like one thing so far. It's the woman. It's a character that I don't know what happened to her, but something definitely happened to her, and I hope it actually, like, talks about it eventually, the book that is. I hope it actually gets to that, because I find it incredibly interesting. But so far, I'm really enjoying this. So I'm not sure if you guys can hear me over the wave, but I have made progress on the Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. So far, I'm really liking it. There was a reveal recently that really made me excited to see where this book is going, because it opened up an entire, like, realm of, like, book types that I really like. I'm not gonna say what it is because I feel like it's a spoiler, but I'm super excited to see where this book is going. So it's Saturday, December 7th, and I just finished The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. I absolutely love this book. It is definitely a new favorite of mine. It gave me the same vibes as when I was reading The Night Circus, like the first time I read the audiobook for The Night Circus, and also The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Like, both of those books combined are kind of the vibes that I get from this book, but this book has, like, tropes and things in it that I like more. So I really enjoyed this so much. I don't know why I waited so long to read this book, because I had picked it up, like, back when it first came out, thinking I was gonna love it, and then I just never read it. I think part of it is I thought it would be similar to maybe, like, the 10,000 Doors of January, which I love. I did love the 10,000 Doors of January, but I will say that book was just, like, a little bit of a letdown just because I had too high expectations for it. This one, I feel like I had too low expectations, and I ended up loving it so much. Like, this is a book that I always wanted but had never read before, and now I've read it, and I'm so happy. I, like, didn't plan to read this book this much. Like, I had planned to spend more time with Two Twisted Crowns, but I found myself, instead of taking out my ebook, which, like, I went to the beach, right? I was gonna sit down and read at the beach, but then I was just like, I don't feel like reading my ebook. I want to continue with the Book of Doors. So I got my headphones out and I actually listened to it instead of taking out my Kindle, which is what I had planned to do, which that's what just kept happening this week because I was enjoying this book so much. And I have to drive back home now. I have about 2 hours and I don't have an audiobook because I finished it before my commute. And the whole point of getting another audiobook was for this commute. So I don't know what I'm gonna, oh, well, I do have Deep Work by Cal Newport, which I am still reading, but I just got so distracted by all the other great audiobooks that I've been reading this week. The Book of Doors is probably a book that I'll actually end up buying because I can see myself rereading this again in the future, like probably soon. So it's Sunday, December 8th, and yesterday I finished Deep Work by Cal Newport. Honestly, it's not a super long book. It is like book length, but for an idea that you could probably convey in like a 5-minute YouTube video. So I feel like it's not necessarily that worth it to read the whole book, but at the same time, I did get some ideas for some productivity things that I want to try. So I still enjoyed the book, and there are things useful in it that I'm excited to look at. It's basically how most of our day is kept up with like shallow work, like checking email, things like that, and we actually only work for like 4 to 6 hours a day. And basically tips and tricks for how we can get better at focusing on work and utilizing those, 4 to 6 hours a day or whatever it is that we're actually in deep work better. But also there are like things like different methods that other people use depending on what their careers are. So there are other like side parts of it, but that's kind of like what I got from the book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I liked it. I saw that the author did have like another book coming out that seemed like on a similar trend. I'll put the title on the screen. I don't remember what it was. I don't think I'll be picking that one up after having read this one. As for Two Twisted Crowns. I'm about 15% of the way into it. I'm enjoying it. I am missing the audiobook because I do love the audiobook narration a lot, but I am still enjoying this. Unfortunately, I'm not far enough into it to give like a proper review, so if you want my thoughts on it, you'll have to wait for the next vlog. But that is all I have for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel and consider subscribing because I do have a full schedule of these videos planned out for the month of December. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.